Okay, so basically I'm making this video to talk about how and when I knew I was transgender. Some of you may know what that is and some of you may not. Basically, when you're transgender, it's the way that you're born. Basically, your biological sex, being a male or female, doesn't match the gender that you identify with. For me, for example, I was born a female, but obviously I associate with the male gender up here. So it causes for a lot of confusion and a lot of other things. I'll get to that later. Being transgender, there's something that comes with it. The gender dysphoria. Basically, the gender dysphoria is not being comfortable with your body parts. Basically, what you feel on the inside does not match your outside at all. That's how I've always felt. There's a lot of things that come with gender dysphoria. You know, struggles with self-esteem, your body figure, feeling trapped in your body, isolation, struggle with employment, struggle with drugs and alcohol. You have a hard time expressing the gender role that's expected of you. That causes a lot of confusion and a lot of different types of feelings and emotions. Basically, what causes it is something in your brain structure, differences in brain structure and functioning, hormones, genetic variation. There's just all kinds of things that they've come to see that causes this, you know, at birth. It's definitely not a choice. I don't choose to live like this, and you know, it's just not a choice at all. It's, you know, it's something that's completely unavoidable. Basically, when I realized I was transgender, I've always known that I was born different, you know, born in the wrong body. So growing up for me, my childhood was fun because I lived as a boy. I identified as a boy. So when puberty came along, it made things difficult. You know, things were changing, and that's when the isolation started, the depression, the anxiety, all of that. You know, and not knowing what was wrong or what was causing it. I just thought that I was different. I didn't know that all of these symptoms were because of the gender dysphoria and the transgender. It just wasn't talked about. You know, it's really not been talked about around me. Everyone always accepted me, which made it a little more difficult for me to come to terms with, because I've always just been accepted as Kelly, or a lesbian who dresses like a guy, and that's not even the case. You know, I'm transgender, and it's completely different. When you're a lesbian or you're gay, you're actually okay with your gender. You're just attracted to the same gender. So they actually identify transgender people as straight. So me, I would be a straight male. So it's kind of weird to think about, but it's true, and it does make sense now. I always felt uncomfortable when I identified as a lesbian for some reason. You know, and like I said, my family always accepted me. My mom and dad were so cool with me dressing the way I wanted to. I've been dressing like this since I was, I think, 3 or 4. You know, they even told each other that I should have been a boy, you know, a long time ago. And, you know, it was easy for me, which actually made it more difficult as the years went by, because I didn't recognize it, and I didn't research it, and I didn't educate myself on it. So I hope that this video hopefully reaches out to somebody, and also kind of lets everyone know who I really am, and, you know, why my life has always been so unbalanced, or, you know, why I've made some of the choices that I've made. You know, through high school, it was really hard for me to try to fit in. I didn't feel comfortable It was really hard for me to use the bathroom. Everything was just always just constant tension, and I just felt so out of place. Even though I was accepted and people liked me, it just, I never felt comfortable. Just caused for a lot of built-up stress and anxiety and a lot of depression and just discomfort. And like I said, it wasn't anything that I could change or avoid, you know. Basically a lot of the symptoms that I have dealt with and still dealing with on a daily basis, it's always hard for me to get things done. I kind of have to force myself to, and when I do force myself to do that, it causes me to get angry and irritable and annoyed. I just have no energy and no motivation. Kind of just feel like my life is pointless, and like I'm just killing time or reading every day from a script, just waiting for another day to pass. That's how my life has been. And when I do have when I do feel happiness, it's short-lived. It doesn't last long at all. It's just all part of just not being happy with your gender. So I know it's going to be hard for a lot of people to relate to that, but try to imagine, waking up every day and being completely depressed and unhappy with your body, your body parts, and something up here doesn't click with down here, so it causes for a lot of excessive and extreme emotions on a daily basis. And a lot of transgender people, that's how I knew that I was, because I got on YouTube and I started watching all these videos a few weeks ago, and I was like, oh my God, that's my story. Why wouldn't I admit to this? I didn't want to admit to people that I was born in the wrong body, or that I wanted to be a guy. I wanted people to think that I was comfortable with who I was, and that became such a habit to say that I started believing it. And I started believing that I was honestly happy with everything, and I wasn't. And I eventually just got used to wearing a mask and putting on a show, and I've taught myself how to act around people. So I know there's a lot of people that are probably like, man, I thought Kelly was really, really happy. It's not true at all. I've just tried to cope, and it doesn't work. The only treatment and approach to this issue for transgender people is to match your body with your inside. Basically, for me, I would have the top surgery. I'm not comfortable with my chest. I wouldn't do bottom surgery. I'm just not comfortable with that. That's my opinion. And I would probably get male testosterone, because it would help. It would just, everything would match, and life would be easier. And I would, try to, I just want to live a happy life. That's all that I can say. I'm tired of feeling this way. I can't do it anymore. 41% of transgender people commit suicide. And suicide for me has always been a thought. It's not something that I would do, because I have death anxiety really bad, but it's a crutch for me. It's always nice to know that it's there, and that's not normal. And I've always felt a disconnection from my emotions. I don't cry. As the years have gone by, I've just kind of become numb. I just don't really feel, and that's a part of it too. People would ask me, what's wrong with you, and I couldn't ever answer it, and that was a hard thing for me. I had no idea. In the back of my mind I did, but like I said, I didn't want to come to terms with that because I didn't see a way out of it. So why come to terms with something that you can't change? But you can change it. I didn't know that. I struggled, I think it was my senior year, I was 18, I started experimenting with drugs and alcohol. That made me feel comfortable. It kind of helped me loosen up a little bit and be comfortable around people. I always just felt really just out of place, even as I got older. I didn't know how to act around people. The drugs and alcohol were a temporary relief. You know, it helped for a little while, but it didn't solve the issue. So it got old pretty quick. I wouldn't abuse drugs and alcohol today. It's just it's not going to do anything for me. There's not a drink or drug that could relieve the pain of gender, you know, dysphoria and the gender identity issue. So I've kind of forced myself to admit that I was an addict and alcoholic for the last few years. It was easy for me to do that because it took my mind off what was really going on. But it also pissed me off too at the same time, because I was running away from the real issue, and here I was again avoiding the real issue. And you know, I just kept trying and trying and trying to feel comfortable with that label, and I couldn't do it. You know, I tried and tried, and you know, I worked the steps. I've met a lot of cool people in the program. I'm not saying anything bad about it. You know, I think it's helped me deal a little better and cope a little better. But it's just, that wasn't the underlying issue for me. The addict and alcoholic part of it. Those were coping mechanisms for me. Short-term coping mechanisms. So, I mean, another thing is I can't sleep at night. You know. It's just, my mind's just constantly going and going and going. It's just a really hard thing to deal with. You know, my goal here is to, you know, reach out to people and help people, because if someone's struggling like I am, I definitely want to help and guide them if I can, because it's not a good feeling to just now recognize this at the age of 26. You know, I look back on everything, every choice that I've made, every decision, everything, jobs, struggling with employment, just everything is making perfect sense to me. It's almost like my whole life was a lie. And it's just, I have a lot of emotions going on, but I am seeing a therapist, and we are working on getting me in the right direction. She's a gender therapist. She, you know, works with transgender people, and she does believe that the right choice for me is to transition and be who I need to be, because there's no pill or anything that's going to change it, you know. So it's scary and it's exciting. You know, I just know that the people that love me and care about me are going to stand by me, and I appreciate that. I love my family and Stephanie and Zayden, and I thank them very much for sticking by my side, you know, through all this, all the ups and downs. And you know, it's just, it's a really, really hard thing for me to deal with. You know, every day for me is a struggle, every single day. It's not just here and there, you know, and it's nothing personal. It's me. And you know, I just wanted to let everyone know who I am, and hope you enjoyed it. And there's a slideshow after this, so stay tuned. I'm sure there's some pictures of a lot of people on Facebook in this slideshow. They're just pictures, kind of like a timeline, so go ahead and watch that. And one more thing, if there is anyone struggling with this or having issues, just admit to who you are. Who cares what people think? Talk about it. People don't like it, they don't have to listen. So that's all I got.